Conrad Negron here with Trish and Cherie Porter. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, the 173rd Airborne Peace Chapel. We just had the most exciting event and fundraiser, and we're here to discuss it, show everybody some of the activities, some of the things that happened, and the amazing interviews.
Yeah.
Wasn't it fun?
Oh, it was great.
I didn't ever see you because you walk too fast.
I know. That's the fastest, I think, and I'm just starting to catch my breath right now.
It's been a couple weeks,
packed.
and it was fantastic. I have never seen, the first responders and our heroes today need to be congratulated, need to be, just commended every day. Because after, and you'll see some of the interviews a little later in this video, but what's the 173rd Airborne Peace Chapel? Your husband started it.
Yes, when he was in Vietnam with the 173rd Airborne in combat. One of the men said to him when they were having a worship service, and they had no tent like they had for other, like the hospital in places where they lived. And they didn't have a chapel at all. He just had to have open air services. And they were sitting out in the rain one Sunday having a service. And one of the soldiers said at the end of the service, "Chaplain, why don't we build a chapel?" Now these were airborne guys.
It makes sense to build a chapel. In Vietnam, that must have been...
Right there on the firing lines, right in the middle of combat.
They were at the, they went out just about every day on search and destroy operations. So he looked at him and he said, "Well, son, we're fighting a war. I don't exactly know how we're going to build a chapel." So at the end of the service, the young man walked up to him and handed him a handful of money. And by the end of the week, he had $1,300.
Wow, which was a little bit of money then.
It was.
So
was he getting support, from his command, from his...
No, he just did it on his own. As a matter of fact, he was a maverick.
Yeah.
So he got an architect, a civilian architect, a Vietnamese civilian architect, to draw the plans. They smuggled the materials through the Viet Cong lines.
I always like that smuggling, but go ahead.
No, they did. They would go out on search and destroy operations, come back in, and build the chapel.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing.
They had an engineering group that found out what they were doing, and they came and helped them, even stayed on a little while to help them do it, past their time.
In Vietnam. So how many years was he there in Vietnam, and then obviously he brought it back to the United States?
He did all this in 1 year. They did all
and built
this
it there.
in 1
year.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was there 65 and came back in 66. So they built a chapel that seated 150 men. It was a beautiful, beautiful wood frame building, and what it did for their morale was.
And I've seen some pictures of it. We can see on the website and stuff. It's really just amazing.
Yeah.
Some of the pictures and things like that.
Right.
Now, Cherie, when you were younger, obviously, how did you start to get involved?
Well, it wasn't till years later when Daddy came home, and when he came back from Vietnam, he had such a drive to do something to help the troops of treatment. He saw the desperate need. But life goes on, and what happened, I think we had his story first with everything that he saw in Vietnam and the trauma and so much that they were going through. And then with me, I had something that happened that was very traumatic, and my parents jumped in with me, and we did everything to get the answers to get me past it. So it was kind of like two stories going in together that brought us to the Peace Chapel. When I think of Peace Chapel, I think of it's getting peace back in your life. That's what Peace Chapel is all about.
And it's very different because you're talking about some of the post-traumatic stress that people are going through. And at the time, they didn't even know what that was.
No, shell shock.
What do you have, a headache? Take an aspirin.
That's what it was. Yeah.
So you guys have kept this going. I mean, I can't even believe how many years. So what's the next? I mean, we're in it right now.
Right.
We had the fundraiser that we just had.
Right.
That's which everybody will see here in a few minutes. Some of the stuff we did, but. How are you keeping it going? What's the next step for the Peace Chapel?
Well, we're very fortunate because we met with the county superintendent, and he loves what we're doing.
John Bonet, right?
John,
right.
John Benoit. And he said that he would move things quickly for us. And when we came to him, as each step as we went along, that he would move it along for us and introduce us to the planner. The planner.
This is in Sky Valley. Let me jump in.
That's right, 22 acres.
22 acres out there.
On the hot springs.
which is relaxing. I want to go already.
Yeah, really.
Zoned
I think we all need to go there.
No, we all. That's our point. We all need this.
Yeah, I think so. So what's we saw the fundraiser that we just did,
Right.
and this is going all over the world. And I invite everybody to, contact us, contact me, enjoy the video. We have some emotional things. I talked to Lieutenant Joe Torillo of the New York Fire Department, and I also
great.
spoke with Marine Captain Mark Shelton,
Right.
Purple Heart recipient, and you think you're having a bad day.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
and you hear these stories.
and you hear these stories.
Yeah.
What's the next step? We need to continue to have funds to build this facility out there. Is that right?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. It's
What's the
about
next step?
raising money now. That's where we are. We have handpicked a team that it's so wonderful. People are ready to go. We're waiting to go. We found a way to build now that is next to nothing as far as to get this thing up and going, and it will go up fast.
So it's kind of like what they call it, Otane?
It's
Otane?
well, you've got the 173D Peace Chapel that stands as a monument, and it's also a treatment center for stress. And like I said, getting power back in your life. Otani, opening to a new you, is a resort going around that we would also open up to civilians also
Okay.
to come for all kinds of treatment for chronic stress, acute stress, all the way to PTS.
I don't have any stress. I don't have any stress.
None of us do.
None of us have
right?
any stress. Yeah. That's why I think you throw events like this and the fire department, the police department. We talked with Lieutenant Evan Peterson, who is here in the desert, in the
Yeah.
Palm Desert Indian Wells area. What a fine young man, but he's been around a while, and we need guys like that. And
Yeah.
we need, when you see these first responders, and you see especially Captain Shelton.
Oh my gosh.
And you guys are very close with him. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with him.
He's like a family member.
Well, we're just sick and tired of the way police are being treated in America right
right.
now.
Yeah.
So one of the things we really want to do is emphasize that they have stress. I know one of them told me he had just been on a really difficult call, and he stopped for gas, and he just sat there for a minute, and he said all of a sudden he was crying.
Yeah.
Just didn't know why all of a sudden he was crying, but this is what happens. They live with constant stress. Their lives are in danger if they stop to pump gas, or if they stop someone now.
Well, that's
to give them a
that's
ticket.
just so horrible. And
Yeah.
I think at this time we're not going to get into politics and stuff, but I think inevitably maybe the police won't come
Right.
because they know that you don't
Right.
in your area. Well, then
If they're not appreciated or what's going to happen.
So I think everybody should go out there and
So we want to
tell
show them our
If
appreciation.
you're going to break the law, then you need to be arrested.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and I think what's most important, especially right now with our troops in Afghanistan and all over the world, this conflict, our poor soldiers, these guys, the captains of the world, these are real heroes, and I love what you guys are doing. It's so important back here that we support it here and here in the desert, all over the world. Invite everybody to continue to help in any way that they can. But you had told me that your father wrote a book.
Yes.
Okay, and I know you put some notes down. Have you got a second to read it to me?
I would love to.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I've kind of got 3 little parts here, and the reason I do this is it gives my father a chance to speak to
course.
all of us, and his story is the main story, of what he saw in Vietnam and that vision that he came back with to get this project up and going because he saw the importance.
Well, he sure did. He had a lot of, foresight to see something that, he was 30, 40 years ahead of his time.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was.
Tell me, I want to hear it.
And I want to bring this in because, when we're talking about that the men came together and said, let's build a chapel and all of this, I want to give you just maybe a mood that might have been going on. They were desperate, and I think they needed that symbol to stand there for peace, and so this was one thing that my father wrote that maybe you can get that feeling
Let's do
of
it.
what
Let's
he
hear
was
it.
seeing. God, how can he be here when little children are starving to death or shot by soldiers? Where was God when my best friend stepped on the grenade? I'm so lonely for my family. The stifling jungle, the stench of war, the constant fear of attack are all making me wonder what kind of person I am. I'm afraid, I'm angry, I'm lonely, I'm tired, I'm homesick. The girls here are pretty and loving and make me forget I'm fighting a war. I might die tomorrow, so why not live today? My brother died 3 weeks ago. He would have gone home next month. No one back home will ever believe what it is really like here. War is hell. I always heard, and now I know what that means. I knew these young soldiers personally, walked with them shoulder to shoulder. I knew what they thought, how they laughed, what they feared, how deeply they believed in their country, the great faith they had in God, how much of themselves they gave. I knew what made them cry, about the letters from home that literally tore them apart, about the absolute inconsistencies that frustrated them to their core. I saw their gentleness, their compassion, their love. I saw the bad that war can bring out in some. I saw the nobility it brings out in others. I'm speaking of America's true sons and daughters, the backbone of our country. The young men and women we raised and loved and believed in. I am speaking of the young people from the little hometowns across America. It is time the parents and loved ones of these heroes were given a reason for pride. It is time we learn to salute our flag again and love our country unapologetically. This was the dedication of my father's book, and he said, in a base camp just outside Ben Hoy is a dusty road called Bowen Street. It was named in honor of Specialist 4th Class Ray Bowen from Hannibal, New York. Ray served as my enlisted assistant. He was the kind of boy I would like my daughter to marry. He was a good soldier and a good friend. Ray begged to go with me into combat, and he pleaded for us to stay where the action was so that we might be of help to the men in case trouble came. Trouble did come, and side by side we lay in the midst of it. I looked into his eyes and saw faith and courage. When I looked back, his eyes were closed, not to open again. He died in my arms. I am now back home again. 2 years have passed, but I still remember Ray Bowen. I would like to dedicate this book in honor of Ray and the men like him in the 173rd Airborne Brigade with whom I had the privilege of serving. In them I saw the American ideal, and in the process I became a better American. They gave the words duty, honor, and country a new meaning. And in this spirit we move on.
We move on.
With a project.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and that's from a man who, when did he pass away?
Daddy died, was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago on Father's Day, and we promised him before he died that we would build Peace Chapel.
Well, we're going to do it.
And one thing he would do, even in the latter stages of Alzheimer's, he would still look at me and say, keep going. And so I remember that, and let's keep going, and we need everyone's help to keep going and to get this up.
I love it. Trish, Cherie, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at the event. We're talking charity, we're talking American flags, we're talking about the military. We're here at the Indian Wells Hotel today, October 12th. We're a really exciting event. We're going to have some great interviews planned. So everybody stay tuned. Take a look at this. We've got a very inspirational guest. Joe, thanks for coming today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Tell us, you started your career as a fireman in New York, and where was your firehouse?
Right across the street from the World Trade Center. Started my career in 1980. That was a brand new firehouse, and they built it because of the World Trade Center complex. And I was there for 16 years. I was going over the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan, and about an eighth of a mile away, I see smoke and fire coming out the top of the World Trade Center. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I'm thinking about my friends in that firehouse across the street where I started my career. Now I'm saying, what do I do? Do I make a right and go to the press conference, or do I go to the left and get to my firehouse and run into the building to see what's going on? And that's what I did. So I took off my dress uniform, and I grabbed a helmet, boots, and gloves jacket from another fireman off duty. His name was Tommy McNamara. You know, he was at home. I took his firefighting clothing, and I ran out of my firehouse, which is 150 feet across the street from the South Tower. And I hear a roar, and I looked up, and the second jet came right over my head. I was the only one underneath it. And I see the jet from nose to the tail for about 1 split second. It hits the tower and then disappears, almost like a magic act. The tower looked like it just sucked the jet right inside. I'm like, oh my God, we're under a terrorist attack. And the first 2 things I said to everybody that I encountered, I said, everybody on the top of the buildings are going to die. I said, we're not going to be able to get to them, and they're not going to be able to get down. And I said, second thing I said, these buildings are going to collapse. People said, what? I said, these buildings are going to collapse. But nobody would listen to me. Nobody could understand. Nobody knew I was a structural engineer before I was a fireman. I was right outside the South Tower, outside in front of it, and I heard a loud rumble and a roar, and I looked up and the building's coming.
Conrad Negron talking today with Captain Mark Shelton. Captain, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's so nice to see you
here.
Well, let's talk about, then you were then assigned duty in Afghanistan or Iraq, or?
Well, first they sent me to Monterey, to the Defense Language Institute up in Monterey, so I learned Arabic up there. I was up there for 2 years.
So tell us what happened. You were you were deployed and you were on a mission.
The first stick of my convoy hit a double-stacked tank mine, anti-tank mine, and it blew up one of the vehicles in front of us. We get the compression blast, and that'll ring your bell pretty good. And then of course we got a complex attack, meaning we got indirect fire and direct fire from a sniper across the street from my compound I was on. And I had an 82 millimeter mortar explode about 15 feet from me. Fortunately, there was a wall between us that absorbed most of the shrapnel, but the concussive blast, it'll knock you for a loop really bad. I couldn't figure out which way was up, and you get the whole wall. We were surrounded in a closed-in compound with shooters on the rooftops, shooting down at us. And then actually the first one that shot me first was actually the entry control point person that I'd selected to guard the door, if you will.
He turned on you.
He turned on it, yeah. And I looked right past him, looking for the shooter. He shot me 2 more times. That one, unfortunately, did miss my armor, and it did some heavy damage to my left side and to my hip.
Conrad Negron, let's talk law enforcement here in the desert at the Indian Wells Hotel today. I've got with me Evan Peterson.
Correct.
You are the boss.
I am.
You are the captain.
I'm not the captain. I'm a step away from the captain. I'm a lieutenant. I run the Indian Wells Police Department.
So how long have you been doing that?
I've been out here in the desert the last year. I've been with the department coming up on 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
What are some of the crazy things you've seen in law enforcement?
Oh.
I know, that's a hard question. That was a loaded question.
I was going to say it's extremely hard
question.
Like,
grandma going 95 and 25.
Of course. I've worked all over the county. I've worked in Lake Elsinore, Paris, Jurupa Valley, Moreno Valley, out here now in the desert. I've been all over, so I've seen a heck of a lot of stuff. Car chases, shootouts, I've got to see a bit of everything.
Do you think overall law enforcement all over the country is suffering from the agenda of sometimes the media and some of the,
sure,
people get killed, children get killed, and adults everybody gets shot. It's not a. It's not a gun
I wouldn't say everybody gets shot. I wouldn't say everybody gets shot. But yes, do we struggle with the media? Of course we do. And as I see it. The officers that I work alongside, they're men and women just like the rest of us. And so it is. You try to do the best you can on a day-to-day basis. The number one reason people are getting in car accidents is still for distracted driving and speed. We just can't stop people getting off their cell phones. If we could, we would have a lot less accidents.
It's just so unbelievable. I talk about this, and you can't text. I don't care who you are, you can't do it.
I know.
If you're going 8 miles an hour, my brother told me the other day that he was coming down Fred Waring, which is 3 lanes. A guy literally stopped in the far lane and was texting.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is still our number one cause of accidents. It is people speeding and texting at the same time.
All right, we're back. Wow. You did it. You did it. We pulled it off, didn't we?
Yeah.
You guys did such an unbelievable job. I'm still touched by the stories. Cherie, it's almost like the stress is still there, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's what this project is about. And as we talked about for our military, they need this so much, and our firemen and our brave policemen and our EMTs, you know, that are out there for us. And they come in these times of stress and they disappear, and most of the time we never get to thank them for all they're doing. But the one thing that I wanted to say with stress that so many of us don't realize, that with so many serious illnesses, stress is at the heart of it. We don't realize, we get sick later and we don't realize that stress was there. They say 75% of a lot of the doctor's visits are all stress related. And I've always thought sometimes, you know, like if we get hurt, we wear a cast on our arm or we go in and get medical checkups. But for stress, none of us do that. We don't want to talk about it because we appear weak, you know? And I just want to say we're all human. And what Peace Chapel is all about, we're like a tune-up place. You know, where
That's
you can,
a great way of saying that.
where you can go in, you can get tuned up, and you can get the tools that you need. A lot of us don't even know about these tools.
Your husband didn't know that 30, 40 years ago and was trying to do the best he can.
No, in fact, when he came home, he was pastoring a civilian church and he kept going to funerals. He has a PhD. And he finally figured out that he was going to all those funerals for all the kids who died around him.
That's just crazy.
And it took him that long as a psychologist to figure it out. So think what it must be for the young people who have no idea why they're hurting. That's why we want to do
And
this.
there's not treatments out there. There's just not the things that are really working. It needs to be individualized. Everything under one roof and a getaway. You know,
that's what you're doing. The 173rd Airborne Peace Chapel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me be involved.
Thank you.
Thank
Cherie,
you
thank
for
you.
being involved.
Everybody
on
take
that.
a look. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's going to be more to come. We'll be holding more events out here in the desert. We're going to get ready to build the Peace Chapel, which is it's going to happen. So everybody take some of the information down, and you can see the rest of the interviews at the website that we'll show you. Everybody have a great day.